find a gift to make your day. Let me send some good vibes your way. Dunkin' Donuts for everybody that feels.
Hello and welcome to my podcast, CALA's Funniest Steve Moments, where we ask the question, what Steve moment made you laugh the most or the most memorable? My name is Cindy Brown, and I hope you enjoy the show today. We have some amazing guests I know you're going to find entertaining, informative, and the information they share is so valuable. And I'm looking forward to sharing it with you today. Enjoy the show. The first guest on my show today is Mr. Alex Fizz. Always insightful, always elegant, always motivating. Today he talks about Steve and his drive and passion for our business. Well, Alex, welcome. I'm thrilled to have you here with me today to talk about Steve and memories that you've collected over the years in traveling with him and working with him. We're putting together CALA's Funniest Steve Moments, but they can be any kind of moments. So just wanted to hear from you, Alex, and share some of your thoughts and memories with Steve.
Let me tell you, you mentioned, traveling together, working together. You didn't mention suffering with him or suffering of him. Now, listen, having had the opportunity to work with Steve in different roles in these many years, it's been a privilege, no question about it. Steve is such a great companion for traveling, yes, for entertainment, of course. But I think that the elements that I admire the most of Steve is his drive and the passion that he has for the business. He's an incredible leader, no question about it.
Absolutely. I've got a picture, and I'd love to put this up. There's an adorable photograph of you and Steve, if you remember, in St. Thomas Shark Tank, and you both had on those shark hats.
That's a great one. That's a great moment, Steve, I tell you, I met Steve for the first time probably, 15, 20 years ago.
That long?
That long, because when Steve was working already in the creation of the offshore resort network, of course, I was in Brazil at that time. And in some way, we always admire the offshore resort network and the job that Steve was putting together with other key leaders of the organization, with Gary Grove and many others, and Jane Hillner. Mm-hmm. Everybody from South America, we were in Brazil, everybody always admired that opportunity to have a very solid structure surrounded by incredible professionals. So we always were kind of listening and learning from the things that the organization was doing. So those probably was my first interactions with Steve many years ago.
Yeah, he has a talent of, I learned from him, and it was just recently actually, is how intentional he was in putting a team together. And a method to the madness I didn't see at the time, but there's this cohesiveness that he creates that's definitely a team, but it borderlines family. And
I tell you, and I think that the why, if I will say the why on Steve, is because he truly cares. Yeah. And I think that's one of the most important values that we have in the company. People putting people first. But when you look at in a leader like Steve, that he really cares for the associates. He cares for those associates and their personal needs. He cares for the performance of the hotel. He cares to be fair in the way he's treating and the way he's assigning goals. It's all because he cares. And I tell you, for me, caring for others is probably one of the most generous attitudes and skills that we can ever have. So if that's something that I will put as a big stamp on Steve, I will say Steve Mr. Care.
Yeah. And that, not to use this cliche, but you can't fake that, right?
You can't.
No,
you can't.
The intention is clear and you feel it. And I think that's where that loyalty has come with our team as well. You just know he's got your back.
Yes, in addition to that, because he cares so much, I tell you, we work with Steve in very, very challenging times. and if I don't remember wrongly, was 2013 or 2012 when I arrived here to the States after my assignment in France. And it was a moment where Steve once again showed his incredible leadership and his resilience, because the organization was not going for the best moment. We were audited externally. We received a lot of feedback from stakeholders. And the way Steve took this to himself as, hey, I can fix and I can receive feedback and I can be my better me tomorrow, my better self. I admire that from day one. I always told that to Steve, that resiliency is something that we can all admire from.
Absolutely. And he made us a part of that energy, but in a different way. There was a balance of buffering us from a lot of what was going on in order to allow us to do our jobs. But at the same time, it was, we're going to get through this together kind of attitude and feeling. So yeah, and there's not a lot of people that can pull that off. So.
No, I agree with you. But funny story. Many years I moved to France and I returned, and the first time I interacted with Steve again, I did not recognize him. Because at that time he was fanatic about doing sports.
Yeah.
He was changing completely some of his eating and beverages behaviors, and he was a different guy. And I was shocked. And I always mention that to him, that he has that power now. So I loved it.
Absolutely. Well, I know Steve is going to treasure this, and I certainly appreciate your time. And
thank you for doing this for him. He really deserves that and more.
It's more than my pleasure, Alex. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, take care.
You too. Bye now.
Bye-bye.
And now we're going to hear from Annette Ruhlman, always fun and always full of energy. She's going to be talking to us about donkey, hee-haw, and how all that makes sense in a business environment. Hey, Annette, how are you?
I am great. How are you, Cindy?
I'm good. Thanks for joining me today. I certainly appreciate it.
You are welcome. My pleasure when it comes to Steve.
So we have a podcast that's called CALA's Funniest Steve Moments. And I have a question for you. What Steve moment, quote unquote, made you laugh the most, or a moment that you remember and keep near and dear to your heart?
Well, I can say that I am excited that I have a lot of good memories of Steve. Mm-hmm. I always have been impressed with how engaging he can be in regards to even maybe getting up, singing karaoke, dancing, just being, just letting go, because that's what makes Steve so much fun, of course. But there was this one time in Cabo, which that we had gone out as a group to Cabo Wabo and had a great time in regards to like dancing. And
was this the time that you got up on the stage?
Yeah, no, this was the second time. No, that was not the time.
Okay. Just curious.
But that is when Steve had recognized that I was not afraid to do that. That is true. So.
Okay.
Yes. But we had gone to Cabo Wabo. This is the last time we'd gone to Cabo for a meeting. Mm-hmm. And just in regards to when we were at Cabo Wabo and he was having a good time and just, being very engaging of us. And then we'd gone back to the hotel, a small group of us, because a lot of people had left. And when we got back to the Sheraton, we were welcomed by a taco cart and a donkey. The best part about it was how excited Steve was about this taco cart. And then I was giving him a hard time because there were some hats there and put a hat on there. And I wish I had the video right now. And he started like getting into this donkey call.
A donkey call?
Yes. And then I give him a hard time about, he looked like one of those characters from that TV show, Hee Haw. I don't know if you remember that.
Yes, I admit, I remember.
Yes. And I'm like, I think you could be Roy Clark's cousin about right now. And just how funny he was, and just letting him be himself around us, and showing us his sense of humor. So it was just a memory. I just remember thinking about that really stuck with me, because he was so excited and just laughing at himself, and it was just a good time.
Nice.
Yeah, I enjoy seeing that side of Steve, because as a boss, and just letting us know he can have just as much fun too, and
Absolutely.
be our leader at the same time. So
Just letting go.
yes.
Yeah, I enjoy that too. I mean, that's fun. And I think, as I've said many times with the people, everyone that I've talked to, it's just that's what makes things so much fun and so special with Steve, because we've traveled together for how many years, and all the different situations that we've been in, and you get to see that human side of him. So
Yes.
from there. Well, Annette, thank you. I appreciate your time, and I know Steve is certainly going to appreciate hearing our conversation as well.
Oh yes, let's hope he remembers that one. I would think he only would.
I'm sure he does. All right. Well, Annette, you have a great afternoon.
Thank you, Cindy.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye. My next guest is always a delight to talk to, Antoinette Vandenberg. She describes Steve as reserved and was pleasantly surprised with his dance moves one evening. Well, Antoinette, thank you so much for joining me on my podcast called CALA's Funniest Steve Moments. So how are you?
I'm doing well. Delighted to be here with you, Cindy.
Thank you. Well, it's great to have you, and I know Steve is certainly going to appreciate it as well. So here's a question I have for you. What Steve moment made you laugh the most, or a memory that you have with Steve that you'll always keep with you?
Well, I know Steve for many years, and he's always been a very kind of reserved, quiet kind of person. You don't expect him to be very extroverted in the sense of, dancing or singing, but I've had the pleasure of being with Steve at several of our CALA events throughout the years. And I must say, I was pleasantly surprised and had to laugh at some of the moves that Steve had on the dance floor with the rest of the CALA teams, even when it meant some of the Latin music, and you could see him really trying to, navigate through those sounds, as well as some of his karaoke singing, at the Cancun Marriott. So him and Chris Calabrese trying to hit it off there in the karaoke song. So, those are some of the moments that, I have a lot of moments, but some of the moments that I think were funny and that I had never expected from Steve were those. So that's what I kind of remember from those moments.
That is so funny you say that. That was it's because it is so out of character for him, right?
Yes, it is. And I will say there was one other time that we were in a meeting, and with the A team, and I think you were part of that meeting, Cindy, and they showed a video of all of you singing. I think you may have had a few drinks at one of your meetings. No, I'm just kidding. But I think it might have been one of those meetings that you had with the A team, and I saw some really good 80s music singing, some really hard rock music, and
probably
Steve was
Journey.
right at it with you. So yes, so really fun to see some of those videos, and even though I wasn't there, I really enjoyed them.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, he certainly was able to, make it feel it's work, but it's also we're close, we're family, and we had so many wonderful times together. So both, right? Work hard, play hard kind of thing.
Exactly. And you have to have fun at work, right? It can't be all about work. So you have to enjoy every minute. So I'm glad I was able to share those moments with him and with all of you.
Well, thank you, Antoinette. I certainly appreciate it. And I know Steve is going to appreciate it as well. Well, you have
Yes, I'm sure.
Wonderful rest of your afternoon. And thank you for joining me today.
Thank you, Cindy, and appreciate you doing this. So thank you so much.
You're quite welcome.
Have a wonderful afternoon.
You too. Bye now.
Bye-bye.
Well, I hope you're enjoying the show. We're going to take a quick news break, and then we'll be right back to talk more about Steve's fun and funny and memorable moments.
It seems to be a golden day in the Golden State for one company in particular. That's right. After more than a decade since closing up shop on the West Coast, East Coast breakfast staple Dunkin' Donuts has made a triumphant return to California. And let me be the first to say, Santa Monica is really, and I mean really, excited about their Dunkin' Donuts. So excited that the first person to line up for the new store on Wilshire Boulevard came on Sunday night at 9:30 p.m. And for that sacrifice, he was awarded free Dunkin' Donuts coffee for 1 year.
You know, it was so gracious of them not to use Steve's name to protect his identity. But what I found so interesting is right after that is when Steve started traveling to California. That wasn't a territory he normally went to prior to this happening. Now back to our show. And now all the way from Cancun, I have Mr. Christopher Calabrese with beautiful Rocio Juarez. Such an interesting conversation, and really about Chris's concern of Steve's loyalty to Dunkin' Donuts after the merger. And really, is that going to be Dunkin' Donut coffee, the same type of coffee that they had prior? It's a real concern for Chris, and he shares that with us today. Chris, all the way from Cancun, I appreciate you taking the time today to talk a little bit about Steve. I know what we're doing is putting together a farewell where it's CALA's Funniest Steve Moments. You working with Steve for quite a while. I know you've got quite a few fond memories. You know, there was one time you told me he was in the terminal with you and he needed to get a cup of coffee and he was looking for a Dunkin' Donuts.
Right.
Yeah. What happened in that event?
Well, first of all, which Steve are we talking about here?
Steve Cook with CALA.
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
I vaguely remember him. He's like an ex-spouse, you know, you never hear from him much. And that's probably good. But anyway, yeah, we were on of course, we both fly United.
Okay.
I think we were in Houston, and you know, this guy, I mean, now in every terminal and every 15 or 20 feet, there's another Starbucks, but he likes his Dunkin' Donuts, and I don't blame him. I love Dunkin' Donuts coffee as well.
Okay.
And so he would rather, and almost did, miss a flight than to switch over and have a Starbucks coffee. So we're in terminal, I think it was Terminal C in Houston, and he had to go to Terminal B because or Terminal E because there was a Dunkin' Donuts there, and you know, so he got his Dunkin' Donuts, and I'm like, okay, but we're boarding the plane. He says, okay, no worries, I'll be there. And he was the last one to board before they closed the door, so that he could have his Dunkin' Donuts coffee. And as you, as a sales leader, know, if you're doing sales calls with him, you better know your customer, and you better have that cup of Dunkin' Donuts coffee waiting for him early in the morning, no matter how far it is away, right?
Absolutely. I know that. That's just, I've got that down pat. Anytime we've made sales calls strategically, I know where the Dunkin' Donuts is, and I know where the Target is for you. So.
Fair enough. That's true.
Right.
That's
I strategically choose places where we can get to the Target, but in the
Target,
Walgreens,
and if there's an extra 5 minutes of Walgreens, it's always nice too.
Right on the corner of
Yeah.
Happy and Healthy.
Happy and healthy, and happy and healthy in COVID.
That's right. That's right. So, well, now it's going to be kind of challenging because I hear there's going to be some changes in Dunkin' Donuts where it's going to be Inspire now. I'm wondering
Yeah,
I wonder if Steve is going to be as loyal.
I don't know, especially when they talk about changing that coffee recipe and buying from Starbucks and putting it in Dunkin' Donut cups. I don't think he's aware of that yet.
Well, Chris, I know, it's we're all, going to miss Steve a lot. It's been so much fun working with him. And I know when he goes down to Cancun and preparing for meetings with you, it's always quite interesting. He's been wonderful to all of us and has always had our backs and always been a great conduit between the stakeholders and ourselves. So, and I know he appreciates all of your support in the years that we've worked together. So certainly appreciate it.
Well, he's been a great friend. He's been a great ally. He's helped us a lot. He's been a good boss for his team. I think they respect him. They like him. He, holds people accountable, which always the properties like that. He's been a friend for 20 plus years. So we're going to miss him. Yeah,
Absolutely.
We're going to miss him a lot. And hate to see these things happen, but unfortunately they have been recently. And of course we, Rocio and myself and the rest of the team will miss him a lot and wish him all the best. And we have a surprise visitor. Rocio is with me and she'd like to say a few words also, if that's possible.
Absolutely. Hello, Rocio. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. This is a great opportunity to say that Steve was a very good partner in crime because he was always helping us to get a group business and supporting our ideas. And really, we are gonna miss him. We understand all the changes that are happening. So we hope that he is doing okay. And of course, here is his home, away from home. Anytime that he wants to come, we will be very, very happy to welcome him.
Wonderful. I know he's going to appreciate that. So thank you, Rocio. Thank you both so much for your time today. And we will be talking to you soon.
Okay. Thank you very much. Sounds great. Have a wonderful day. Best of luck to Steve.
Thank you. Bye now. And now back up to South Florida. I had the wonderful opportunity to talk to Chris Holter, and she had some wonderful insight regarding Steve and how he kept being an explorer and keeping that alive. Well, Chris, welcome to my podcast called CALA's Funniest Steve Moments. How are you?
I'm doing great. And wow, I can't wait to talk about Steve Cook. I could say 1,000,001 things.
Well, this is good. This is interesting. Well, let's start with the question of what Steve moment made you laugh the most, or a memory that you had that you'll always keep with you?
Well, I've got a lot of memories of Steve. Steve is really one of those early explorers, as I like to call them, in this whole clustering type of arena. And, you got to keep that explorer alive and find new ways to inspire and motivate people. And I just love everything he's done with his strategy. But my most favorite Steve moment was celebrating his 30th anniversary in Aruba. And I was the most senior executive there. So I got to host it with Steve. And what I remember most about that night, it was at that gorgeous restaurant with a pool, and everyone knows the name of it, but I can't remember it. And it was
Papiamento?
Yes, yeah, it was just beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And twinkle lights were on, everybody was laughing, smiling, and I still have this great picture from that night. And I'll always remember that night because it just was the perfect way to celebrate, surrounded by so many of your team, laughing, probably having a beverage or two, and having a great meal. So that really is my favorite Steve moment.
Nice. Yeah, he was all work, but when he was with us and celebrating, he was able to let go, and you'd see another side of him.
That's right. Absolutely. Yes. And that was just such a special night. Again, you don't always get to interact, when you're traveling and doing all the different things in your roles. And it was just such a special time to be able to spend that with him.
Nice. Well, Chris, thank you for sharing that with us. We certainly appreciate it. And I know Steve is going to love hearing your voice and appreciate your time as well.
Oh, I wouldn't have missed sharing that story. I mean, again, I'm going to have to send him. I'm going to find that picture. I'm going to send it to him. That's my next step.
Awesome. I'm sure he'll love it. Well, Chris, all the best. And thank you again.
Thanks so much, Cindy.
Bye now.
Bye.
This next conversation, I know you're going to enjoy. I know I did. Debbie tells a story of how Steve jumped out of a Suburban in the middle of a highway running after water bottles. I know you're going to enjoy this conversation. Debbie, thank you so much for joining me today. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Wonderful. So as you know, this is a podcast is called CALA's Funniest Steve Moments. So question I have for you today is, what Steve moment made you laugh the most, or moments that are special for you that you remember with Steve?
Oh gosh. There's a lot of them. I mean, a lot of funny ones going on, almost 9 years now of traveling and things. And
has it been 9 years, Debbie?
Yeah, almost.
Oh my gosh, I can't believe it. Okay.
Believe it either. Yeah. One that really, I think just tickles me still to this day. And it took me a few years to live this one down, but truth be told, Steve had a big a part in this at the very beginning. So we are in Denver, Colorado, and we are going to be participating in a charity golf event. Mm-hmm. We're hosting a hole and, selling the properties, and it's a Mexico theme.
Right.
So we have our Mexico stakeholders that are also flying in. Steve and I arrive before they do, of course, and we make sure I get the Suburban, and we had everything else that we needed to have, ran some errands. And the last thing we needed to get were cases of water, right? Because we're going to put them in this cooler and have it at the hole that we're going to be hosting on the golf course. So we run into this gas station. Now, mind you, the Denver airport is kind of an adventure in itself, and there's a major highway that is literally inside the airport. So we go to this gas station in the airport, and we get, 3 cases of water, and we get them in the back of the Suburban. And in the meantime, the stakeholders are already at the gate. They're outside, they're waiting, they're WhatsApping, they're all antsy now that we're not right there, Johnny, on the spot. So we get in there, close the door, I hop in, I'm driving, of course, and I'm just hauling the mail down this highway, and we're, clipping along at a good 50, 55 miles an hour. And all of a sudden we kind of go over like this bump, and the tailgate of the Suburban opens. And Cindy, all 3 of these cases, ba-boom, 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 just go rolling out on the highway. And of course, the plastic that they're surrounded kind of breaks. So these water bottles are bouncing all over the highway. Steve's like, you gotta pull over. I get over. He's running down the highway.
No. He's running after the bottles?
Yes, and there's nobody like behind us or anything, but we're like in this huge, like I said, it's the Denver airport. It's crazy.
Do you realize the visual on that is hilarious?
Listen, it got even funnier because, he's chucking them in like he's a quarterback, just in the back. We're just trying to hurry up and get it up. And I've got the plastic is rolling down through the side of the road and the grass. In the meanwhile, both of our phones are ringing, and it's our one stakeholder that I don't even need to say gets very impatient if you're not right there.
Can I guess?
Yes.
Chris Calabrese.
Yes.
Yes. Oh, man.
So we get the last bottle in. Steve's like, go, slam it. And so we pick them up. And of course, they have all their international luggage. We have PV, we have Cabo, and we have Cancun. And so Steve opens up the back of the tailgate, and there's all these loose bottles now. And there had to be, I don't know how many's in a case, but there's a lot, like just, like 100 bottles of water just all chucked in the back. Chris Calabrese is like, what is going on here? And Steve's like, well, and he's very serious. Well, we went to get, water. We need to have it for the hole and everything. We've got all the decorations for the hole that we're going to be on. And he said, but they're all over the place. And I said, yes, they were cheaper if we bought them by the bottle. Now let's go. And looked at me and he goes, yes, cheaper by the bottle. And we got in the car and just drove. So this gets better. We're all done. The charity event was fantastic. And, the golf tournament, people loved our hole that we did. And we did like a game. It was really, really fun. Mm-hmm. Now we're leaving. And in the meantime, mind you, we've gone straight from the airport. So we still have everybody's luggage. And, this is international luggage when these guys travel. So we get in, we throw in the stuff that we had decorated, our table with from the hole and kind of get it in there. In the meantime, not blaming Steve, Steve shuts the back of the tailgate again. And we get in the car and we're driving. And of course, everybody's talking. And Chris Calabrese is in the front seat. He goes, hey, I think this is the highway right here. So of course, I whipped the Suburban over and we kind of went over like this little bumps in the road, when you're like going off the side of the highway. Mm-hmm. And so we hit this like big dip in the road and the car kind of bounced and the tailgate popped open again and Chris Calabrese is like
Of course it would have to be Chris's luggage.
Oh my gosh. I just remember making eye contact with Steve in the back seat and I'm in the driver's seat. I thought, I'm so fired. So fired. It took me forever to live that down and I can't believe I'm bringing it up again. So hopefully Steve is the only one that's going to listen to it. It was funny.
I can't believe it. I was just...
Oh Lord.
I cannot imagine the reaction. There was one time I was making sales calls with Chris and this rock hit his side of the car and his reaction was hilarious, like panic. So I can imagine his luggage falling out, how he would react. Oh, Debbie, that's hilarious.
Yeah. Good times. But yeah, I think just seeing Steve running down the highway after that water and then the look that we gave each other. I mean, that was definitely a moment that I will never, ever forget. That was really a fun trip.
Really, I'm sure he's not going to forget. Well, obviously now he's going to have this to remember, but I'm sure that's etched in his mind as well. But yeah. Oh, well, Debbie, thank you for sharing that. I know he's going to really appreciate that. And how do I even explain this? This division of a team, borderline family, and what he's created has been just so wonderful. And I know you've felt it, and you're the one that really has talked to me about that as well. So it's something that I'm truly going to miss as well with him.
Oh yeah, that is true. He just had a way with, I think with each one of us individually, and then just as a team, and it was just a harmonious collaboration of just family. I think that's really what it comes to mind. I feel very blessed to have been alongside of him and working throughout all these years. And there are many things that I've learned and I will continue to cherish. They are memories forever that nobody can take away from me. And I love that.
Amen. Well, Well, Debbie, thank you so much for joining me today. I certainly appreciate you spending some time and sharing these moments with us.
Oh, thank you, Cindy. Take care.
You too. Bye.
Bye.
And now all the way from Montreal, Canada, Jacques, General Manager of the St. Kitts Marriott. He's extended an invitation to Steve to visit him in Montreal. Jacques, welcome. So good to have you joining us today.
Thank you, Cindy. It's a pleasure.
So as you know, this is our podcast that's called CALA's Funniest Steve Moments. So I know that you worked with Steve quite a bit. And so I just wanted you to share with us if you had any Steve moments that made you laugh or one that you remember in specific that you'd want to share.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Steve is a very serious person. so I don't have many laughing moments, but definitely when I had I always remember the sales trip I did with him over the last probably 8 years. We have done sales trip every year almost. And there is something I remember vividly is the breakfast ritual at Dunkin' Donuts. It was always the highlight of the trips. And Steve wouldn't go anywhere else than Dunkin' Donuts.
That is so funny. So many have talked about that. The Dunkin' Donuts. He's
Oh yeah, every trip was a Dunkin' Donut trip.
Yeah, but but it's funny you say serious because I don't know if you've been around him after he's had a few beers.
Yeah. No, I've never seen him go crazy, but I know he could.
Well, yeah, good crazy. I don't know if that's in his DNA, but he does loosen up a little bit. I've seen him.
Yes.
He's actually danced with me once, and that was kind of fun.
Wow,
So yeah, he does have the lighter side, I think, to him. But
that's unusual, yeah.
Yeah. But I do know that he worked really, really hard to make sure that all of our stakeholders, including St. Kitts, were well represented and taken care of.
Yeah, absolutely. We had a fantastic relationship, and actually, it's a friendship more than a relationship.
Yeah, we talk frequently about that Steve had that way of relating with us, right? And that's kind of how it's nice to do business that way.
And I know he likes Montreal, so I'm going to send him my contact information when he comes.
You should.
I'll take him to Dunkin' Donut in Montreal.
Well, then it's a better chance he'll go because if he knows there's Dunkin' Donuts there, you have a better chance of him coming to visit.
Absolutely.
Well, Jacques, thank you so much for your time. I know Steve is going to certainly be appreciative to hear your voice and your comments and great memories with you.
Absolutely. And thank you very much. And where can I get your book?
I had a wonderful conversation with Laura Castillo. We talked about how Steve made her feel so much a part of the team. Laura, thank you for joining me today. It's so exciting to have you here. I know how much Steve has appreciated your support and help throughout the years. And so I have a question for you because we certainly want to give him a wonderful farewell. What Steve moment made you laugh the most or a memory that is the most fondest?
Okay, so first, thank you, Cindy, for considering me. It is very important for me to have the opportunity to share these words with you and, of course, with Steve. And I have a lot of different moments with Steve, but I have just one in particular. We had a fam trip with great clients like 2 or 3 years ago. And we had the opportunity to do and try to share with the clients the art walk in downtown San Jose del Cabo. And it was very funny because we had the opportunity to know each other better and to share with each other. We had the opportunity to spend time in some art galleries and restaurants and talk about and, try some weird and really nice cocktails. And it was very nice to spend this time with him, of course, and with the team and also with the clients. And we had great results of this fam trip as well. So it was very funny. I have very good pictures of it that every time that I see them, I enjoy watching them. It's like living again that moment. And I remember that one. Very, very important part. Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah, it's a great way with fam trips, right? To get to know people well.
Yeah. And I think, he's one person that I admire a lot. At the moment, since I got here at the JW, it's going to be almost 5 years now.
Wow, that long.
Yeah. And he gave me this opportunity to share all the things that we had to share with you guys, but he was very helpful and understanding, and he teaches a lot. I learn a lot from him, and I really appreciate, and I really thank the moment and the opportunity that I had to work with him. I also remember some trips that I did with you guys in some sales calls, and I had also the opportunity to share, some appointments with him. It was like very brief because he was always with a lot of different things going on in the, in his life, but he always had that time to spend with us. I really felt that he tried to be with us as well, because it was very hard, to be everywhere at the same time. But I really think he tried it a lot to be with us and to share with us as well as partners, as he made me feel part of his team. And it was very, very good thing for me.
Isn't that nice?
Yes, that was very great from him. Yeah, I really appreciate that. I love that part from him.
Oh, thank you, Laura. I so appreciate it. And I know he's going to appreciate it as well. So.
Thank you, Cindy, for giving me this opportunity. And for Steve, thank you. And remember that you will have another house here, another home here in the JW. I'm talking from me and of course from all my co-workers here at the hotel. And we will be very pleased to have you in some future trip that you plan to come to San Jose del Cabo. Thank you, Cindy, and thank you all.
Thank you, Laura. You take care.
Take care too. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
I had a great time talking with Marianne Wilt. She talked about a hidden gem restaurant Steve was very proud he discovered. And it's above a convenience store. Enjoy my conversation with Marianne. Well, Marianne, welcome to our show. How are you?
Oh, Cindy, this is terrific. Thank you for organizing this beautiful farewell for Steve Cook.
Well, it's my pleasure. So in this podcast called CALA's Funniest Steve Moments, gives us an opportunity to just kind of remember some of those moments with him, and there were plenty. So the question I have for you, Marianne, is what Steve moment, quote unquote, made you laugh the most, or a memory that you have from him?
Cindy, it's really fun because Steve Cook is a very predictable, all business sort of boss, or at least I thought so. But I did have a beautiful experience. We were in Cancun. It was actually back in 2019, and I was on site with Steve Cook and Sam Andrus, and we had an opportunity to preview the Renaissance Cancun, which was a new property that was coming into the fold. And so we arrived in our business casual attire. We had very sincere conversations with the executive leadership. We had a tour of the property. And when all of this was finished, Steve said, well, Sam, Marianne, let's grab something to eat before we head back to our next appointment. And the Renaissance Cancun is actually in a very vibrant area with lots of restaurants and dining options, and right there at our fingertips. Wow. But instead, Steve says, we're gonna get a cab. I have a place we're gonna go. So Sam and I were like, oh, okay, boss. Like, we thought we were just going to walk into one of the places here that we can see. So we jump in a cab.
That was kind of a head scratcher, right?
Oh, yeah, a total head scratcher. And I'm like, where are we going in this cab? And we're driving to this section of Cancun that, well, it wasn't near the beach, let's just say. It was sort of off the beaten track. And Steve says, I recognize it right here. This is fine. Let us out here. Well, we get out, and I swear we're in like a very residential section. Not much going on. And it looks like we're walking into, honestly, like a convenience store, like a very casual convenience store. And Sam and I are looking at each other and we're thinking, well, maybe we're just grabbing deli sandwiches or something quick. But if we're doing that, why didn't we just stay up by the other end of the by the hotel zone?
Right.
So anyway, Steve like walks right in, like, follow me. We go into, and indeed it's a convenience store. I mean, they're selling everything from Mountain Dew, Gatorade, cigarettes. And Steve's like, we go up the stairs. And I'm like, what stairs are you talking about? And there's actually this rotating, like a wrought iron staircase. And I'm like, okay. So up we go. Sam, and you remember Sam, right? Our Canadian
yeah, absolutely.
played hockey, like a big
Sure.
guy.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
this rotating staircase, we get to the top, and honestly, it was like, ta-da! It's this darling, fresh seafood market where you actually order your fish and have everything made right by your table.
Whoa.
It was this hidden gem. And Steve was so proud. He was like, but you guys had no idea I knew about places like this. And we were like, no, honestly, we did not, because you're predictable in business, Steve Cook, all business.
Exactly. I, for a minute, thought you were going to say it was going to be Dunkin' Donuts.
Oh, right?
Oh,
It's just so funny because honestly, Steve has this ability to be very, he's our boss. He's business focused.
Absolutely.
So it was a very refreshing and fun story. But I have to say, actually, the funniest story I have with Steve was a fam trip that we did. And it was also in Cancun. And one of the offsite activities involved ATVs.
Okay.
So we were all grouped together. Pat Shook was at this, Kim Walker was at this event. And you know how when you're with a client event, everyone's sort of pairing up and making sure, okay, is that client going to ride with her, partner that she brought, and who's pairing up with who? And we get down to the end, and one of the more needy clients looks at me and Steve, and she's like, I want to ride with you. And she points to Steve. It was fantastic because it was just, if you can just imagine Steve hopping on an ATV and this really dainty meeting planner hopping on behind him. I'm not sure if she really wanted to do the ATV tour or not, but it was just one of the other funniest things. And I thought, gosh, why did they make us put our cameras away? I need to have a photo of this.
Right. And those moments, right, when you want to capture them, by the time you get your camera out, the moment is past. But
yes, the moment's passed.
My gosh.
Oh my gosh, Cindy.
That is great. Yeah, there's so many memories, really. I know you came in at what you worked with him for 2 years.
Yeah, almost 2 years as we were putting the A team together. But you actually remind me, there's one last story that it comes to mind, and it has to do with, my tenure with Steve, only being with him a short time. He actually did do one of my reviews, and I met him in the plantation office. And as you know, the plantation office, it's a very modern building with the individual offices where you can go in and sort of take over your space as it's assigned to you. So Steve and I had an assigned room, and the receptionist said, please walk down here to this room, and we're in. And then Alex Fizz actually comes around the corner and says, oh, we were going to use this room for a meeting. And of course, Steve was like, hey, we're flexible. So we got up, moved to another location. And Steve, who's very tech savvy, gets all of his computers plugged in. We're using the big screen, and we're going through my LPP. And as Steve's walking me through my review, he doesn't realize, but it's up on the big screen behind him. So as he's going through, like whether I know what my ranking is, I already know. So that was hilarious. I told him like halfway through, and Steve got a big chuckle, and he's like, oh, well, he's like, what I think about you anyway.
You should have said, okay, Steve, stop. Let me guess. I'm telepathic. That is hilarious.
Oh man. But barely made 2 years with the Steve team. But I mean, can you imagine? That's just 3 great stories off the, just from that short time together. So I'm super, excited to be part of the greater family. And I can't wait to hear your podcast when you put all of our stories together, because I mean, I'm cracking myself up here. I can't even imagine what Annette and Debbie and Pat and you have in store. for us.
Oh my gosh. No, yeah. And I think the word that's
Oh my
the
gosh,
common
and
thread with everybody.
Melinda.
Yeah. The common thread with everybody is the word family. And it pops up
Mm.
frequently, besides, of course, Dunkin' Donuts, but besides the Dunkin' Donuts, family is the common thread. And I think, he just was able to, that it's business, but at the same time, it felt borderline family as well. So
Yeah.
anyway, well, Marianne, thank you for your time. I certainly appreciate you taking the time to share your fun moments with Steve. And I know he's going to be grateful to hear it all. So,
Oh my gosh, I appreciate you putting this all together. Honestly, you know, Melinda and I had so many great trips together because we handled the same market, but it was the times that I had Steve all to myself, it was really fun. So
great. Well, thank you again, Marianne, and you take care.
thank you, Cindy.
And now a delightful conversation with Melinda Laughlin. Melinda talks about Steve's travel to Roanoke, Virginia. He was so grateful that there was Wi-Fi connectivity in that part of the country. Melinda, so glad you can join us. How are you today?
I'm great, Cindy. Thank you.
You know, we're putting together CALA's Finest Steve Moments. And I think in the so many years that we've spent with Steve, there's so many of those finest moments with him. And I know that you've sales calls with him and done all kinds of, events or fam trips. And so I wanted to make sure that the moments that you've had with him, that you have an opportunity to share and so as a memory for him as well. So if there is what we call a Steve moment that made you laugh, or a moment or a memory, would love for you to share it with us.
Absolutely. Actually, there are two. One is, I think Steve is the only boss I have ever had who came to Roanoke to see me.
Sorry, that's funny in and of itself.
As you know, I get a lot of flack from Pat and Steve about Roanoke, little tiny Roanoke. And do we have cell service? Do we have phone service? Yes, if you're only standing on top of the phone pole.
Right, the shush of the board.
I just remember that was so awesome. In fact, he came to do my and Robert's reviews. But it was so cool because he actually experienced our world. He went to Robert's house for a little bit. He was at my house for a little bit. And I mean, we, did the reviews at the hotel where he was staying. But, afterward, we just got out and, just kind of ran around a little bit and showed him the area. So I love that. That just made it so personal, and that spoke to me so much about Steve and who he is as a person.
Absolutely.
And then the other thing about him, I remember somewhere down the line, I realized this on my own, but when Marianne came along from the luxury side, of course, and she would call me and say, hey, I did this, or I have this, what do I do? I'm not real sure which way to go with it. And this particular day she called, and it was something, I think she had done something incorrectly, not a big deal, but just, something she wanted to know, what do I do? How do I tell Steve? And I said, Marianne, just call Dad and tell him you wrecked the car. She said, what? I said, just call him and tell him you wrecked the car. I said, Marianne, he will have your back for sure, but he needs to hear it from you before he hears it from anybody else. So, we take care of him the same way he takes care of us. And, it really wasn't hiding anything. As a matter of fact, it was getting it out there, but just giving him that opportunity to be prepared if he got a call from someone, okay, I'll take care of it. I'll address it with my staff or my person, but, he had our back always.
Absolutely. I say that so often. And, I took a course many years ago at the Atlanta Marquis. I don't know if it's Marquis or Marquise, but, and it was a gentleman who wrote the book, I've Got Your Back. And in business, and understanding the value of working with and for somebody, that I always call it, our family, or, you can tell me anything, but I know out in the world, he's singing our praises. And so with that, you can work peacefully knowing that no matter what, he's got your back. So
Absolutely.
Right. When you said that, it kind of rang true with me. So
It definitely is a two-way street. And, it was always conduct yourself in such a way that, you don't have to apologize, be professional. And, if you do all those things, but you still make a mistake, it's okay,
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Melinda, thank you. I know he's going to appreciate this. And I know both you and I are work sisters and certainly going to miss him. The interaction. And I certainly know that, no matter what in this journey, it's a small world in our industry. So I'm hoping that, we're still going to be in touch and, where our paths lead us and how those paths cross. But I know no matter what, we're still going to always be in touch. So
I agree
nice.
100% with that. Work is what it is. Ours went to a different level, I think. But now that, we're not all going to be together like we were, does not mean that, we won't stay together. That's just what we have is bigger than the job. It's bigger than really any of us realized until this came along, I think.
Right.
So
you don't know what you got till it's gone. Joni Mitchell song. That Pay Paradise, the parking lot song, right? That's come to mind a couple times, but yeah,
absolutely.
He was able to really understand the value of unity and family. And I think when we had that last call and he was talking about history of choosing people to be a part of the team, and at that time, I didn't realize how intentional it was, but brilliant to know how critical it is that we work as a team. But it's not only that, he brought it to a family level. So
yes, he did. Yes, he did. And it's going to be hard, I'm sure, for those who are still working, in one way to you'll go forward, certainly, no doubt. But, there's just that little bit of a lingering, gosh, miss him.
Yeah.
And I, you guys are going to do great, I know. So, but, it's just, he was definitely the glue that held us all together. He always said that was Maria, and it was to a great degree, but, he was, okay, then Steve was Elmer.
Oh, that's hilarious. Well, I think that's a good note to end it at. Yep. Well, girlfriend, thank you for joining me today and helping me put a nice big farewell hug together for Steve.
Absolutely. Thank you for the opportunity and all that you're doing for this. This is awesome.
Wonderful. Well, you take care, Melinda. Thank you.
All right. Love you, girl.
Love you too. Bye.
Bye-bye.
My next guest is Rachel Shanor. She talks about not having a seat on an airplane to return home after a sales trip, and Steve would not leave without her. Hello, Rachel. How are you?
I'm doing well, Cindy, and you?
I'm fine. Thank you for joining me today. We're going to be honoring Steve, and the podcast we have here, CALA's Funniest Steve Moments. I know that you go back a long way with Steve, not only working with him, but I think you live kind of close by as well. So share with me some of your memories of traveling with Steve and working with Steve.
Well, first I want to say that I'm really grateful to be able to contribute to this. And goodness, Steve and I worked together for 15 years. So, and I would say up pre-COVID, I would say from 2009 is when we started traveling together in a much more extensive environment. So with Steve, some memories of our travels. I always joke that, whenever we were traveling together, those were all the experiences where hazard pay was warranted. Where, he would travel with me and we would experience our first earthquake together in Mexico, or, live through the H1N1 virus again in Mexico, and, being at the airport and, us trying to evacuate, and they lost my airline ticket, and, all sorts of stuff. And he stepped up and he's like, I'm not leaving without her. So you're going to make this happen, you know, for us. You know, and that just shows the humanity of Steve and you know, his character. But, you know, I joke that that's the type of stuff, and I guess maybe because we did travel together so much that there's so, you know, it's almost funny to look back upon, you know, all the craziness that we've been through together. But like, for example, you know, he would travel with like another coworker and they would meet, you know, Derek Jeter, he's a big fan of at Notre Dame in Paris. Meanwhile, you know, we're going through all these other types of experiences. So, you know, there's many a moment, and there's probably far too many to actually reference today. I remember being, I want to say like 32 weeks pregnant. So I'm really pregnant, and we're on the 6 a.m. flight from Vegas to Newark, and, you know, boarding group 1, and my roll-on lost a wheel. And it was just, I was the last person in group 1. And I remember I went to go back for the wheel and Steve's like, just leave it. He's like, they're going to come in. Group 2 is just going to come and roll over you. And he was right. I mean, I started walking back and they just were coming fast and furious at this, you know, 8-month pregnant woman. So I was like, fine, I'll just have to order a new wheel. And exactly what I had to do, you know, just to board the plane. And, you know, we had so many experiences like that. And just, you know, I always enjoyed traveling with Steve. I always enjoyed working with Steve. But, you know, it's finding the funniness in the craziness is kind of my memory of, and will always be my memory of working with Steve. And, you know, I think that's part of working in CALA in general, is there's a bit of craziness, but there is, and you hit it right on the nail, because and that's what made it that edgy fun, right? Is that little bit of craziness, whether it was the Amazing Race, zany stuff we would do, to just sometimes the way in which we would travel. Oh my God, I think back to St. Kitts, and we did remember we were driving around St. Kitts and we had like in those Jeeps.
The road rally?
The road rally, and oh my God.
I've got a flat tire.
We needed there should have been more guardrails, quite frankly, because it was a little scary. Especially, I think we had like this reckless guy driving our car. I mean, it was just, you know, like those are the types of moments in CALA, you know, and I just thinking back to like the white party that we had. Oh my God. Yeah. There's so many fun, zany moments, and, you know, being through that together, you certainly build a bond with people. And I can attest that I built a bond with many people, you know, in the team, but certainly with Steve.
Absolutely. You know, and he has this gift of creating a team that not only feels like a team, but it's borderline. And we talk about this in the group side, but borderline family, right?
Yeah.
It's not, it's more than just a work team. And I've said this in another interview, so it's going to sound a little repetitive, but I think for me, and I've told this to Steve many times, it's that knowingness. And I think maybe that's why the family had that feeling of family, where Melinda calls it, Dad, I wrecked the car. Just tell Steve, you don't have to worry, you know, just let him know. And no matter what, you have this feeling, no matter what you did, as long as the intention was right, he had your back.
Of course. And he did. In many ways. Yeah. In many ways. Probably more than most people know, but yeah, he, you know, referencing back to the comment that I made about when, you know, he wouldn't leave me at the airport, you know, and he had a seat. I didn't. And he fought to get me that seat, you know, as I'm sitting there crying hysterically, like, oh God, I need to go home. You know, it's Auntie-M. But he stood up for me, and a lot of people wouldn't do that. And, you know, just in other ways too. And I'm sure there's a lot that I'm personally not aware of, but I also, you know, am aware of times that he did shield me from other things that were happening, you know, and just to not get me caught up in the craziness of something, or,
right.
You know, he always said that he knew that I would, and he was good at reading people, and he is good at reading people, and like knowing that he's like, oh gosh, if Rachel finds this out, she's going to be not able to sleep for a day, you know, because this is the perception of something, and I would, you know, want to fix it. And he was just good at reading and knowing people's struggles, so they wouldn't have to struggle, or, you know, and also areas where they could improve upon, and it, you know, and just sitting you down and talking something through with you, and it's just remarkable. And I've learned so much from all of those conversations that I'm forever eternally grateful for. So
Yeah, I think it's kind of that X factor, right? When the skill set of people and what they're good at. And I think what made Steve so special is that X factor. I know in the heart of hearts that there was a lot of shit that he had to deal with stakeholders. And I don't mean that in a negative way, but just all the, obviously they've got a lot on the line as well, and they demanded a lot, but and he became that buffer in between the stakeholders and ourselves so that we could do our job. And yet he was, he had our back. And I can just imagine some of the conversations he had to go through and trying to smoke and mirrors, trying to, hold them at bay while we do our job. So
to allow everybody to keep selling, because that's what you're supposed to be doing. Yeah. And not get caught up in the, struggles that are going on.
Yeah.
Behind closed doors. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
So, well, Rachel, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just going to comment by saying, he truly is a leader, and wants the best for the team. And, you could go to him with, like Melinda said, and I forget exactly what her, Dad, I wrecked the car.
Yep.
But it was always like, okay, well, let's make sure you don't wreck it again. Let's figure out how we can, that's fine, it happened. What can we do to make sure this doesn't happen again?
Exactly.
Learn from it.
Exactly. Yeah. And he was good at really detecting the word intention, right? That the intention of somebody, and he would know, had that sixth sense. So, well, Rachel, thank you for spending time with me. I mean, it really shed some great light on some of the, the Steve moments and your experience working with him. And as I've said many times, I'm hoping that, we are a family, and we'll continue to be in touch, and hopefully our paths will continue to cross one way or another. So.
Well, and Steve will always regret telling me that row 21 has more leg room and reclines, because I was happy sitting in row 11 or 14 for a long time. And then I started fighting him for that same 21C or 21D seat. So
thanks for the tip, Rachel.
Exactly.
Well, you have a great rest of your day.
Same to you, Cindy. Thank you for taking the time to talk with me, and I'm grateful, like I said, to be able to contribute.
Awesome. Take care, Rachel. Bye for now.
Bye.
My next conversation is with Tessa Christ, all the way out in Colorado. She talks about the balance of fun and work and how grateful she is for Steve believing in her. Tessa, welcome to my podcast, CALA's Funniest Steve Moments. How are you?
I'm great, Cindy. Thank you. How are you? Thanks for having me.
I'm good. So good to hear your voice. So, we want to make sure that we send off Steve in a great farewell and reaching out to everybody. And so wanted to know if you had a moment with Steve that made you laugh, or, that laughed the most, or a moment that was a great memory with Steve.
Oh my gosh. How do you pick one?
Right?
The travels with Steve and the time that we have had together, just invaluable to me. But I think that when I think about saying something to Steve and his farewell, I would really like to just take a moment and thank Steve for his amazing leadership and friendship over the past 8 years. Steve is approachable and patient, and his genuine caring nature is something that every leader should strive for. Thank you, Steve. That's what I say, for having the confidence in me and helping me step out of my comfort zone of selling full-time and making the leap into leadership. With your guidance, I was able to dive into this new venture, and I'm proud of the stellar team that you and I made and for the successes that we had together. I wish you all the best in your next chapter and hope to work alongside you again in the future. I will miss Steve dearly, very, very, very much.
Oh, I think we all will. It's just this. Steve had a way of making it fun, and he also had a way of, it was all business, but at the same time, all the ups and downs, we all felt like we were part of something that.
Absolutely.
Right? That we were all
I
part
agree.
of.
It
Part of
was all
something to-
business, but what Steve brought to the table always was there was always that personal nature and that caring man that if something was happening in your life, he was the first one to just ask how you were doing. And that was, that's something that not everybody has the ability to do. So I very much appreciate that as well.
Absolutely. I think a lot of what we're hearing too is just this feeling of family and being together.
Definitely.
So
Agreed.
yeah, that was nice. Well, Tessa, thank you so much for your time today. I certainly appreciate it. I know that Steve is going to appreciate it as well.
Thank you, Cindy. Have a great day.
You too. Bye.
Okay. Bye.
The last guest on my show today is Mr. Robert Hayes. He's been a longtime friend of Steve's and shares so many wonderful memories. Well, Robert, it's such a pleasure to have you on my show today. How are you?
Well, Cindy, the pleasure is all mine. And yes, we are live from Roanoke, Virginia, atop the telephone pole. So all is good here in the mountains.
I hope you're keeping warm up there.
It has gotten chilly.
Well, as you know, this podcast is called CALA's Funniest Steve Moments. And we're talking to a lot of folks. And I know for me, this interview is very special because you've known Steve for such a long time and a good friend of his. So I know you've got quite a few moments to look back on. So what were
2 days, I promise.
So what Steve moment made you laugh the most, or a moment that you'll always remember?
Well, Cindy, gosh, and you were with me for a lot of them, or with us for a lot of them. There's so many. It's really hard to remember all of them. I hope there was a lot of them that really dealt not so much directly with Steve being the funny part of it, although I would have to say one of them would be seeing Steve in the sombrero next to the donkey. That probably was a good one, and I'm not sure you were there for that one, but he'll know what I'm talking about, and that I did laugh quite a bit that evening. And some of the other ones really had to do with maybe other things that happened in our CALA family that were pretty funny. But I think one that comes to mind is when we were in St. Kitts, and there were quite a number of them that we could even say in St. Kitts that were funny, but the one that kind of sticks out in my mind is the night that we all went to Brimstone Fort. And at the end of the evening, of course, we're all very happy by the end of the food and beverage function. And we got on the bus, and then the bus got stuck in the archway. Archway, yes. And so there was Steve out doing his best job of, he's always a great director, right? So, well, he never thought he'd try to be directing a bus through a historic archway. So while we're all on the bus laughing our tails off, he's out there trying to get the bus through. So that was definitely one of them. Another couple wrapped around food and beverage, and one being in Puerto Vallarta. We went out to dinner one night to the Prime restaurant down the street from the Marriott, and this was on my watch, but I guess I was either asked or maybe I was just ordering for myself. I can't remember, but I ordered steak for the table, and looking at the menu, I accidentally did not read very well, and I thought it was $20. It was actually $20 an ounce. So when I loaded this up with good meat that night, ouch, here comes the bill. What did you do? So, yeah, Steve was always, it was like a parent, I guess, and the kids messed up. Pat, he also got the big one, right? And you know which one I'm talking about.
Well, we just should have had the steak and the wine all together and called it a night.
Nice to have them on the same evening, so. But I can't remember. His may have happened after mine, so I think it follows him. In fact, I saw an article the other day on this with regards to ordering something you thought was not so expensive, which he did in ordering a bottle of wine that he thought it was 40, and I think it ended up being about 400.
It was,
that bottle, right?
I remember. I was sitting next to him. I remember that vividly. And I remember Steve looking at the bill, and then Steve's head was down, but his eyes were up and looked up at Pat, and then looked down and then looked up at Pat and said, "What?
You know what you did?" What are you talking about? Yeah. Then we're all going back to the kitchen, starting to wash dishes.
Exactly.
So we can leave. really early in the process, I think Steve had just started. We had one of our other director of group sales. So just, Steve had become her boss. Anyway, she was up on stage and trying to dance with Chris Calabrese and ended up falling off the stage. And the only reason it's funny is because she was okay, among other things that we may know about that evening and you may know. But I think it put a whole new twist on an example of how the trust fall may not work so well in the group. So got to watch those. But that was a pretty good evening and a lot of fun supplied by that situation. So I'll leave it at that. I want to thank you, Steve. I know you're listening in, and thank you for being there through most all of it. And not only were you a tremendous leader, you were a tremendous friend throughout to all of us. And while there's, much uncertainty at this moment in time, one thing remains certain and a constant, and that's our friendship will endure for sure. And here's to the next chapter, buddy, my friend. And remember, I still have 3 blue coupons to spend at Cabo Wabo when we have opportunities. So
You do
Cindy,
not
that
want
means
those to go to waste.
one for me and one for Steve, right?
There you go. We cannot waste those blue coupons.
We cannot waste them.
Well, Robert, thank you for your time today. I certainly appreciate it. I know Steve will. All the best, and we'll be talking to you soon.
Well, thank you. Great job, Cindy, and I really appreciate all you're doing to make this a special event for Steve. So here's to you.
It's my pleasure.
Talk
Take
to you.
care.
All right, you too. Bye-bye.
Bye. You know, Steve, our life has a timeline. Our legacy doesn't. There's so many people who love, appreciate, and admire you, me included. I'm sure you've felt the love these past few days watching the video, all the people bidding you farewell on the video calls. It's clear. You've impacted so many lives for the better. Thank you. Our journeys may take different paths, but our lasting friendship and memories won't. Bye for now.